Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Surbhi Sharma. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Thursday, the 27th of June. Indian Prime Minister, Japanese counterpart hold talks on sidelines of G20 summit. Afghan President Ghani meets Pakistani leadership in Islamabad. And violations of procedures led to Nepal minister's chopper crash, says report. And now for all the details. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Osaka city in Japan on Thursday to attend the G20 summit. Upon his arrival, Prime Minister Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe held bilateral talks on the sidelines of the G20 summit. During the meeting, India and Japan agreed to expand the strategic template of relationship between the two countries.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Osaka city in Japan on Thursday to attend the G20 summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral talks with his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe on the sidelines of the G20 summit. During the meeting, many aspects of India-Japan relations were discussed. Prime Minister Modi said that he was looking forward to Abe's visit to India later this year for an annual summit. India's Foreign Ministry in a press briefing after the meeting said that India and Japan agreed to expand the strategic template of relationship between the two countries.
But on at a number of points, the connectivity issue was touched upon. The first, of course, is, as I explained, is the Act East Forum, which is trying to connect the northeastern part of India to Bangladesh and Myanmar as well. The second was, as I mentioned, both leaders felt that we should jointly do projects in third countries in the neighborhood.
The G20 summit will begin on Friday, and concerns over trade, conflict and oil will likely dominate the meeting. Prime Minister Modi will also hold talks with leaders of major partner countries, including US President Donald Trump.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has promised India of adequate crude oil supplies as New Delhi has stopped buying Iranian crude in line with US sanctions. India, the world's third largest oil importer, was among Iran's top oil buyers, but after US condition waiver for Iranian oil imports to 8 countries, including India, expired on 2nd May, India stopped all oil imports from the Persian Gulf nation.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Wednesday night promised India of adequate crude oil supplies as New Delhi has stopped buying Iranian crude in line with U.S. sanctions. U.S. pressure has led India to stop buying oil from Iran and Venezuela, both top energy suppliers, and India has been trying to buffer its consumers from the spike in global prices.
You've made hard choices to cut off oil imports from Iran and move away from purchasing Venezuelan oil. We know these decisions weren't without cost. We're doing everything we can to ensure you have adequate crude imports. We appreciate your help in pushing these regimes to behave like normal countries and the Venezuelans to take care of their people.
Mike Pompeo, who was on a 3-day visit to India, met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and held wide-ranging talks to further strengthen ties between New Delhi and Washington.
In news from Pakistan, Afghan President Ghani on Thursday met top Pakistani leadership, including Prime Minister Imran Khan and Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi in Islamabad. This came less than a week after Pakistan hosted Afghan opposition leaders to discuss Afghan peace process. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani met Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan after arriving in Islamabad on Thursday, less than a week after Pakistan hosted Afghan opposition leaders to discuss the Afghan peace process. Matters pertaining to bilateral cooperation in various sectors and regional situation were discussed in the meeting, a statement by the government of Pakistan said. During his meeting with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Ghani said that he visited Pakistan on the suggestions of delegates of the Grand Council on Peace and expressed hope this trip will have a positive result for both nations. Ghani's third visit since 2014 comes as efforts have intensified to reach a political settlement with the Taliban and end decades of war in Afghanistan, which has long accused Pakistan of supporting the Islamist insurgent movement. Ghani's Western-backed government has been shut out of negotiations so far due to the Taliban's refusal to deal with what they consider an illegitimate puppet regime. In news from Afghanistan, Chief of Afghanistan's High Peace Council, Mohammad Karim Khalili, has said that Afghans will never accept the Islamic Emirate. He said the Afghan government and its international partners should ensure a dignified peace and not Islamic Emirates, as it will not be a responsive system for Afghanistan.
Head of the High Peace Council in Afghanistan, Mohammad Karim Khalili, has said that he supports the efforts for the Afghan peace process, but added that an Islamic Emirate will not be a responsive system for Afghanistan. Khalili, who addressed the second consultative and political gathering of Hizb-e-Wahdat-e-Milli led by him on Wednesday, said agreeing on an Islamic Emirate as part of a peace deal means surrender of one party to another. He suggested that the Afghan government and its international partners should ensure a dignified peace, which he said is the demand of every Afghan.
صلح خواست مردم افغانستان است، اما یک صلح عزتمندانه. این بارها گفته، صلحی که در سایه امارت و امارت اسلامی باشه صلح نیست. تسلیم شدن یک طرف به یک طرف است.
Khalili's remarks came amid optimism by the Afghan government and the United States on a potential peace deal ahead of the upcoming polls in Afghanistan. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, during his visit to Kabul earlier this week, said that Washington hopes there will be a peace deal ahead of the Afghan presidential elections in September.
Moving on to news from Nepal. The fatal February helicopter crash in Nepal's Taplejung district killed 7 people, including the civil aviation minister. The probe commission formed to investigate the crash in its preliminary report on Wednesday stated that the incident occurred because it violates standard operating procedures.
The probe commission formed to investigate the February 27 helicopter crash in Nepal's mountainous Taplejung district in its preliminary report stated that the incident occurred because it violated standard operating procedures. The probe commission submitted the preliminary report to Minister of State for Tourism Dhan Bahadur Buddha on Wednesday. Standard operating procedures do not allow taking off during bad weather conditions, placing 3 people in the front seat at high altitudes, or allowing pilots unfamiliar with the terrain to fly VIPs. According to the report, all these standards were found to have been violated by the Air Dynasty helicopter. The fatal February 27 Air Dynasty crash in Taplejung killed 7 people, including the sitting Tourism and Civil Aviation Minister Ravindra Adhikari. In the latest, the detailed report about the occurrences of air crash is set to be released after collecting suggestions from the stakeholders.
More on news from Nepal. An official has said that the work on the cross-border petroleum pipeline project between India and Nepal has been completed and it is likely to become operational within 2 months. The first of its kind project in South Asia will ensure smoother and cheaper petroleum products transportation to Nepal. Marking a milestone, work on the cross-border petroleum pipeline project between India and Nepal has been completed and it is likely to become operational with 2 months, an official said on Wednesday. The project, first of its kind and scale in South Asia, will ensure smoother and cheaper petroleum products transportation to Nepal via a 70-kilometer pipeline. According to officials, the pipeline's technical examination is underway presently in coordination with the Indian Oil Corporation, the major monetary contributor in building the pipeline.
हो रहा है अब निकट में हम संचालन 1 महीना 1.5 महीना लग सकता है वो टेस्टिंग और उसका प्रीलिमिनरी हम कर रहे हैं सब.
The project, which costs nearly $30 million, will ensure a fuel supply capacity of 200 kiloliters per hour. The agreement to lay the pipeline was struck between Nepal and India on August 24, 2015. It will also strengthen the relationship between the two neighboring nations. 4 Indian fishermen were apprehended and 1 fishing boat was seized by the Sri Lankan Navy on Wednesday for allegedly fishing in its waters. Fishermen from both the countries frequently stray into each other's territory and then end up spending years in jails.
At least 4 Indian fishermen were arrested and their fishing trawler was impounded by the Sri Lankan Navy on Wednesday for allegedly breaching the international maritime boundary line and fishing illegally in its waters. The Sri Lankan Navy confirmed the arrests in a statement published on its official website. The statement by the Sri Lankan Navy said the fishermen were expected to be handed over to the Assistant Director of Fisheries in the country's northern Jaffna city for further investigation after a medical examination.
கடலுக்கு போனதில் வந்து மத்தியானம் 3 மணியை போல் ஒரு படகை பிடிச்சி இலங்கை கடற்படை செல்வராஜுங்கிறவருடைய படகு நம்பர் 274 அந்த படகை பிடிச்சிருக்கிறாங்க. அந்த படகு ஏற்கனவே வந்து ரொம்ப பரிதாபத்துக்குரிய ஒரு அந்த படகு உரிமையாளர் அவரே கடலுக்கு போய் தான் வாழ்வாதாரம் ஜீவிச்சுக்கிட்டு இருக்காரு. இதுவரைக்கும் 157 படகுகள் பிடிக்கப்பட்டு இலங்கையில் வந்து விடுவிக்கப்படாமல் எல்லாம் சின்னபடாமை போச்சு. கடந்த 5 வருஷத்தில் நடந்தது இது. இந்த 5 ஆண்டுகளில் இது
India shares an expansive oceanic border with Sri Lanka without any perceptible demarcation, and fishermen on both sides ignore rules while netting their catch. Sri Lanka has long fumed over poaching and illegal fishing by Indian fishermen that it says depletes the catch of its own fishermen.
Sikh devotees on Thursday left for Pakistan from India's northern Amritsar city to observe the 180th death anniversary of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the leader of Sikh Empire. The group of 224 pilgrims will also be visiting their holy places of worship in Pakistan.
Sikh devotees on Thursday left for India's northern Amritsar city for a pilgrimage to their holy places of worship in Pakistan. The group of around 224 pilgrims, being led by a member of Sikh body, Shiromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, will be marking the 180th anniversary of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the leader of the Sikh Empire in Lahore. It also includes visit to holy shrines associated with Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism.
ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਦਰਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਪੰਜਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਰਤਾਰਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ
ਇਹ ਜਥੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੂਟੀਨ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਬਰਸੀ ਮਨਾਉਣੀ ਆ ਬਰਸੀ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਪੰਜਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਕਰਤਾਰਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਤੇ 6 ਜੁਲਾਈ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਥਾ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਏਗਾ
Popularly known as Sher-e-Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh had a long association with city of Lahore, now in Pakistan. Within the framework of the Pakistan-India Protocol on visits to religious shrines, hundreds of pilgrims from India visit Pakistan every year to observe various religious festivals and occasions.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Indian Prime Minister, Japanese counterpart hold talks on sidelines of G20 summit. Afghan President Ghani meets Pakistani leadership in Islamabad. And violations of procedures led to Nepal minister's chopper crash, says report. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsia Newsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsia Newsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.